December 14, 1852, Beaufort, South Carolina. Federal agents raided Willowbrook Plantation expecting routine fraud. Instead, they unearthed a nightmare that exposed the rotten core of Southern aristocracy, a twisted legacy of blood and bondage hidden for over 15 years. 3 sisters, aged 16, 18, and 20, confined in luxury that masked unspeakable truths. Their complexions too fair, their likenesses too striking, the accounts too damning. Prepare for a descent into madness where one man's obsession turned kin into captives. This is the Willowbrook horror. Stay tuned. You won't believe what comes next. The year was 1833. Martin Van Buren's reforms were stirring the political landscape. The cotton boom had turned the Lower South into a financial empire forged on forced labor. South Carolina had been a state for decades, and Beaufort, perched along the Atlantic coast, ranked among the richest towns per capita nationwide. Josiah Harrington was a third-generation landowner, taking over Willowbrook from his uncle in 1830. At 35 years old, he had it all: 1,500 acres of fertile soil, 53 bonded laborers, and a neoclassical estate unmatched in the area. He had a spouse, Elizabeth, from a notable Savannah lineage. He enjoyed prestige, ties to the state assembly. He epitomized the elite gentry. Willowbrook Plantation lay 9 miles northeast of Beaufort, reached via a shaded lane extending over a mile from the highway. The grand residence overlooked the sea, its marble pillars spotted from distant ships. Behind it, in orderly formation, were the worker huts, 2 lines of shacks, 28 altogether. But one structure was distinct, bigger, well-kept, with paneled doors rather than simple flaps, positioned at the eastern boundary, partly hidden by magnolia trees. Neighbors who saw it presumed it quartered the bonded foreman or Josiah's prized domestic staff. In antebellum South Carolina, favoritism toward certain laborers wasn't rare. The system thrived on such paradoxes: harsh yet protective, savage yet close-knit. What nobody guessed was that this hut sheltered Josiah's true lineage. Not the proper Pale family in the manor, but the clandestine bloodline he cultivated in secrecy. It started with Eliza, born in 1816 on Willowbrook grounds. Eliza was the child of Mira, the estate's chief laundress, and an unidentified sire. Josiah's uncle had possessed Eliza's mother, and at his passing, Eliza fell to Josiah. She was 13 years old, fair-toned, echoing cycles of prior assaults. Attractive by the measures white males applied to bonded females. Josiah's wife, Elizabeth, endured 4 stillbirths by 1831. Each tragedy widened the rift between them. The demand for a successor, especially male, burdened owners like Josiah. Heritage was paramount, properties transferred via descent. When Eliza hit 14 in 1831, Josiah started frequenting the eastern hut often. By 1832, she carried his offspring. The arrival of Amelia in March 1833 might have been another hushed plantation occurrence, owners siring kids with bonded women. It occurred on almost all vast estates. Such offspring usually entered the labor pool, their origins a known yet overlooked fact. But Josiah envisioned differently. He relocated Eliza and infant Amelia to the larger eastern hut. He mandated superior meals for them. He equipped the space with discards from the manor, a proper mattress, a swing seat, drapes for those paneled doors. And crucially, he initiated a hidden account book, one Elizabeth never glimpsed. In this account, Josiah logged his aims with stark accuracy. He perused farming periodicals. He examined lineage schemes for sheep and swine. He grasped heredity as 1830s knowledge permitted. He thought regulated pairing could yield elite progeny. He planned to extend these ideas to humans. The second offspring, Charlotte, came in 1835. The third, Sophia, in 1837. Josiah noted each delivery in his covert account with the precision he applied to grain outputs and tool acquisitions. Eliza wasn't merely a paramour, she was the bedrock of a trial. Elizabeth Harrington perished in 1840, formerly from malaria. The outbreak ravaged Beaufort that autumn, claiming 22 locals. Nobody doubted it. But Elizabeth's demise liberated Josiah from feigning an honorable Pale home. He stayed unwed. No necessity. His authentic kin resided in the Eastern hut. As Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia matured, Josiah directed their learning, instructing them in letters and numbers. Rare for bonded youth, but common for indoor help. He desired them smart, skilled, fit for his vast scheme. In 1845, Josiah acquired Samson from a labor market in Charleston. The transaction receipt, later unearthed in Josiah's files, labeled Samson as roughly 28 years old. Prime bodily example, apt for intense toil. He shelled out $900, almost triple the standard for manual workers. Samson measured 6.2 tall, robustly framed, flawless vitality. Josiah had hunted him for weeks. The concluding element of his pairing initiative, what followed illustrated the depths a person could sink when seeing fellow beings as assets, when mistaking godly privilege for hereditary fate, when constructing a lineage that mimicked a ghastly trial. The locality perceived naught, doubted naught, since Josiah Harrington appeared precisely as expected. Thriving owner, esteemed resident, a cornerstone of South Carolina culture. The fiend concealed beneath the owner's facade, and it took 12 more years before scrutiny pierced it. The initial murmurs arose in 1848. Abigail Whitaker, spouse of Josiah's closest adjacent, referenced in a missive to her cousin, later found in the Whitaker clan records, that she spotted Josiah strolling with 3 youthful mixed girls by the eastern hut. They carry themselves like liberated folk, she penned, which I find odd considering their status. Josiah indulges them with a fondness I deem improper. But Abigail Whitaker dropped the remark. It wasn't her affair. Southern etiquette's creed insisted certain matters stay unvoiced, even if evident. That year, Amelia reached 15, matching her mother Eliza's age when Josiah first approached her. Josiah's account logs from 1848 disclose his scheming. He inscribed with a researcher's aloofness, absent ethical qualms. Amelia has attained appropriate maturity. Bodily growth acceptable. Wit sufficient. Samson has been readied for pairing. Pairing initiative advances to next phase. Readied. As though Samson possessed any option in the impending events. The past annals hold scant on Samson's inner world, his sentiments, his revulsion at coercion into this part. We know he was illiterate. We know he toiled the lands from sunrise to sunset. We know Josiah started segregating him from fellow bonded laborers in late 1848, shifting him to a lesser hut next to the eastern area. We know that in February 1849, Amelia, Josiah's 15-year-old offspring, conceived. The parent was Samson, but the designer was Josiah Harrington. Pastor Elias Hawthorne, who sporadically attended Willowbrook to preach to the bonded group, jotted a troubling note in his intimate journal. The journal stayed with his kin until 1928, then gifted to the South Carolina Historical Society. His notation from April 1849 states, "Brother Harrington thrives, yet I admit disquiet over his soulful condition. He discusses lineages and pedigrees with zeal better for beast rearing than godly oversight. When I asked about the spirits under his charge, he brushed it aside with thinly veiled annoyance. Most alarming, I saw a young mixed girl far along in gestation. She seemed no older than 15. When I noted she looked quite youthful for maternity, Josiah turned icy and showed me out. I haven't received another summons." Pastor Hawthorne never flagged his worries. No authority to alert. Josiah Harrington was a notable figure. Statutes safeguarded his total dominion over bonded individuals. Plantation happenings were solely his domain. Amelia bore a boy in October 1849. Josiah dubbed him Elias. The account logs his mass, his bodily features, and a remark: build encouraging, viable sample. Verify lineage via visible attributes. Samson's stature clear. Amelia was 16. She had birthed her sire's grandkid, a child who was both her offspring and half-sibling. The lineage had started devouring itself. Charlotte followed. In 1850, at 15, she too conceived Samson's child. She bore a girl in mid-1851 named Clara. The account remarks mirrored, detached assessments of the baby's wellness, dimensions, forecasts on upcoming pairing promise. Sophia, the youngest, hit 13 in 1850. Josiah noted in his account he would delay until her 15th, upholding the established rhythm. Uniformity in approach produces dependable outcomes, he scribed, as if charting a harvest timetable instead of orchestrating the conception of his tiniest daughter. The other bonded at Willowbrook sensed a miss. They must have. The eastern hut was secluded, yet visible. Samson's shifts were limited. The three girls, Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia, never mingled with other bonded in group rites. But what action? Voicing meant severe reprisal, perhaps demise. South Carolina's labor codes barred bonded from witnessing against pale folk. Their statements held no weight in courts. They were impotent observers to persistent outrage. One female attempted regardless. Her name was Hattie, an elder bonded who knew Eliza from infancy. In 1851, Hattie neared Dr. Elias Cartwright, a Beaufort healer who cared for bonded on various estates, Willowbrook included. Per Dr. Cartwright's later sworn statement post-scandal, Hattie used guarded, veiled words. She claimed unnatural events in the eastern hut, that Master Harrington was forging kin with his bloodline, that tender girls were matched to Samson contrary to any standard practice. Dr. Cartwright rebuffed her fears. He later conceded he thought Hattie muddled or inflating usual estate ties. I lent no belief to her assertions, he owned. They appeared too outlandish, too vile. I couldn't fathom a gent of Mr. Harrington's caliber partaking in such deeds. Hattie was traded to a Louisiana estate 8 weeks hence. The trade document tags her as disruptive and prone to fanciful tales. She was 52. The deal parted her from her offspring. By 1852, the Eastern Hut scenario had reached a dreadful balance. Amelia, now 19, carried her second by Samson. Charlotte, 16, had birthed her initial and tended the babe. Sophia had freshly turned 15. Josiah's account from early 1852 shows his contentment with the initiative's advance. Next generation flourishing. Hereditary stock resilient. Third offspring nearing prime pairing maturity. Samson sustained superb vitality and compliance. Initiative growth viable, pondering adding Elias, Amelia's eldest, to pairing cycle at adulthood. Multi-era refinement achievable. He foresaw ahead, intending to compel Amelia's son into the scheme. The loop would persist era after era, forging what Josiah deemed an elite bonded lineage to sustain Willowbrook eternally. An endless mechanism of mortal agony, scrupulously tallied in account tomes. The fracture emerged from an unforeseen angle. Josiah's grain trades. In 1852, Josiah filed yearly fiscal logs to the Revenue Bureau under a fresh National Review scheme to monitor farm shipments. The scheme was brief and clumsily run, but temporarily demanded thorough logs from key owners. Josiah, exacting in his bookkeeping, unwittingly enclosed sheets from the erroneous account in his filing. The sheets outlined deliveries in the Eastern Hut, hereditary notes, and the pairing timetable he set. A novice aide in the Revenue Bureau in Washington, D.C., named Theodore Langford from Massachusetts, scanned the sheets with mounting dread. Langford was a Methodist, against bondage personally. He carried the sheets to his overseer, who raised them to the district examiner. On December 7, 1852, 3 national officers reached Willowbrook with an order to probe Josiah Harrington's complete fiscal logs. They hadn't a clue what awaited. What they unearthed in that Eastern Hut would torment them lifelong. If this tale chills you, smash that like. This ranks among our grimmest explorations, and it deepens. Spread it to a dark mystery or true crime history fan. Let's reveal the sequel. Chief Probe Theodore Langford later termed the afternoon of December 14, 1852, as the day I forfeited belief in humanity's innate virtue. Langford and his pair of associates, Assistant Marshal Robert Finley and Revenue Officer Daniel Hayes, arrived at Willowbrook anticipating monetary anomalies, maybe hidden earnings, perhaps fake shipment papers, the type of elite misconduct sporadically hitting affluent owners. Josiah Harrington welcomed them amiably. He proffered drinks. He guided them to his library and presented account books logging grain deals, gear buys, and bonded upkeep costs. All seemed orderly. Then Officer Hayes queried the flagged sheets from Washington, those with odd notations on deliveries and hereditary remarks. Josiah's expression blanked. For a prolonged instant he uttered nothing. Then he declared those logs private domestic affairs, irrelevant to national levy issues. Langford insisted. He held power to examine any fiscal oddity, and the sheets implied undeclared holdings or atypical outlays. Josiah must yield the full account. What ensued stays contested. Josiah alleged the probes menaced him. Langford's formal log says Josiah grew restless and guarded, hinting guilt awareness. Anyway, Josiah finally escorted them to his secluded chamber, a minor space off the chief library, and yielded the secondary account. Officer Hayes perused it initially. His grip trembled by the second leaf. The account chronicled all. Amelia's arrival in 1833, her lineage plainly marked, Sire Harrington. Dam, bonded. Charlotte's in 1835. Identical mark. Sophia's in 1837. Then Sampson's by in 1845 with a chilling footnote. Obtained for pairing initiative, bodily specs perfect for hereditary uplift. The logs detailing each gestation, each delivery, the mark that Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia were Josiah's offspring, and their kids sired by Sampson per Josiah's command. The schemes for coming eras, the detached notes on babe growth, the pairing timeline stretching years ahead. Hayes passed the account to Langford wordlessly. Langford scanned it doubly, sure of miscomprehension. Then he eyed Josiah Harrington and posed a basic query. Is this factual? Josiah didn't refute. Rather, he embarked on what Langford later called a protracted defense rooted in farming research and innate theory. Josiah thought he pursued valid inquiry. He invoked lineage schemes for draft horses. He mentioned ideas on past qualities. He clarified crafting an elite worker strain to aid Willowbrook for ages. He displayed no disgrace, no grasp of ethical breach. He discussed his daughter's kids like beasts. Langford mandated prompt review of the Eastern Hut. What they detected shattered the cozy myths pale culture spun about bondage. This wasn't the caring setup estate defenders painted. This was a workshop, a cell, a multi-era breach of every innate tie between guardian and young. Amelia, 19 years old, 8 months with her second, perched in a swing seat cradling a 3-year-old lad. Charlotte, 16, clutched a 2-year-old girl. Sophia, 15, posed at a desk perusing a tome, startling the probes since literacy amid bonded was outlawed in South Carolina. All 3 youths bore pale tones echoing their pale sire. All 3 mirrored Josiah Harrington unmistakably, the identical pointed chin, the same eye placement. Their mother, Eliza, now 41, positioned defensively by her daughters. She inquired what the probes sought. Her tone, per Langford's log, bore fatigue past her age, as if she'd forsaken rescue hope ages ago. In a neighboring hut, they located Sampson, age 35, bodily mighty, seated on a crude timber bench, face buried in palms. When Finley asked if he grasped what Josiah compelled him to, Sampson gazed up with orbs Finley termed holding torment so deep, I barely held his stare. Sampson informed them, wording cautiously, mindful his speech could turn against him despite prey roll, that Master Harrington afforded no alternative. Defiance equaled death, that he'd been made to sire kids with females he knew as Josiah's daughters, that he comprehended the terror unfolding yet helpless to halt it. The probes uncovered extra papers in the Eastern Hut, health logs Josiah maintained, monitoring each gestation obsessively, meal records listing provisions for Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia, learning tools, primers and texts Josiah employed to instruct his daughters, convinced clever dams bred finer offspring. They found Josiah's diary, apart from the pairing account. In it, he penned sections unveiling his utter ethical blindness. Detractors of our unique setup miss its promise for progress via astute control and choosy pairing. We can uplift the African stock while securing our holdings' wealth. My daughters of blended lineage show wit and compliance that suit them as pairing assets. Their offspring display hopeful qualities from both strains. In 4 generations, I foresee yielding laborers of supreme caliber, sturdy, clever, devoted, and ideally matched to estate work. This isn't debasement, but kindly upgrade. Kindly. Josiah Harrington deemed he graced his daughters. The probes departed Willowbrook that night with the accounts, diaries, and health logs. Josiah wasn't detained right away. The judicial bind was hugely tangled. He was a pale male owning bonded. The bonded were his lawful assets. The kids from the Eastern Hut were lawfully bonded irrespective of lineage. South Carolina statutes didn't address a male who'd forged an inbred pairing scheme using his daughters and bonded laborers. The codes banned assault on free pale females but silent on bonded females who lawfully couldn't deny owners. The codes banned inbreeding among free, but these youths were bonded. The law forged a gap Josiah Harrington exploited fully, but societal push mounted as the find spread, probably via the probes who were aghast. Papers in northern regions grabbed the tail. Anti-bondage activists latched as evidence of bondage's core rot. Even in South Carolina, where the unique setup was guarded fervently, folk shrank from Josiah Harrington's deeds. This wasn't standard. This breached bounds even bondage culture acknowledged, if falsely. Action needed. But what? The court actions post-Willowbrook find laid bare every paradox and brutality in America's bondage framework. South Carolina Prosecutor General Henry Caldwell tackled an improbable duty. He privately loathed bondage, a scarcity among state officials. He was lawbound, too. The state's codes offered no direct route to charge Josiah Harrington. Caldwell later penned in confidential letters, "We've erected a judicial structure shielding owners' total sway over bonded. Now we face a matter unveiling that sways fiendish outcomes. Yet we can't charge this male without eroding the whole base of our built system. To concede Josiah erred is to concede owners can err against assets. The reason crumbles. The setup crumbles." Still, Caldwell sensed obligation to attempt. In February 1853, he levied accusations of offenses against essence and behavior unfit for an ethical resident. These were broad, seldom invoked codes lacking heavy sanctions, but all he located applicable. Josiah Harrington engaged top defense funds could secure Theodore Bancroft, a renowned Beaufort lawyer who defended owners in myriad bondage cases. Bancroft's tactic was crushingly direct. All Josiah did was lawful per South Carolina codes. In prelim hearings, Bancroft contended, "My patron possessed these persons. They were his assets, gained legally and held lawfully. His choices with his assets, whether field duty, home tasks, or pairing, fell wholly in his rights. The progeny were his assets too. The national probes lacked power to meddle in asset affairs. This charge is mere anti-bondage excess masked as justice. Judge Eliza Thornton overseeing, found ensnared by bondage law's inner reason. Ruling Josiah guilty for compelling daughters to bear kids would set example undermining every owner's control over bonded females. Bodily exploitation of bonded females was routine across the South if unspoken. The charge claimed inbreeding codes apply, that kin ties overrode asset rights. But Josiah's counsel rebutted inbreeding rules solely for free. Bonded couldn't wed legally, couldn't forge accepted kin bonds, thus couldn't inbred legally. It was a labyrinth of looped reason founded on the core falsehood that bonded weren't wholly human. The hearing commenced in May 1853 in Beaufort. It spanned 4 weeks, drawing countrywide notice. Northern dailies dispatched reporters. Anti-bondage prints detailed every bit, wielding the matter to assail the full bondage setup. Southern prints shielded the setup while detaching from Josiah's deeds, terming them lamentable oversteps, not systemic flaws. The charges case hinged on ethical pleas over judicial. They summoned Dr. Cartwright, who spoke of Hattie's alerts and his probe failure. They summoned Pastor Hawthorne, who depicted Josiah's eerie zeal for pairing schemes. They presented the accounts and diaries, allowing Josiah's words to damn him. Most strikingly, they summoned Eliza as observer, an exceptional move. As bonded typically couldn't witness, Judge Thornton permitted it uniquely, ruling her words could only fact address, not Josiah's blame or purity. Eliza's words, noted by court recorders, endure as a most wrenching antebellum record. She recounted being 13 when Josiah first assaulted her. She recounted each gestation, bearing kids aware they'd be bonded by their sire. She recounted seeing her daughters mature in the Eastern Hut, knowing their fate at 15. She recounted the eve Josiah first led Samson to Amelia, how Amelia wept, how Eliza tried to intercede and was struck, how Josiah outlined his pairing scheme to Eliza, saying she should pride her daughter's role in vital trial. Defense lawyer Bancroft objected repeatedly, claiming Eliza's words irrelevant as Josiah's rights unchallenged. Judge Thornton let it proceed, but directed jurors Eliza's heartfelt tales didn't touch judicial fault. The defense summoned solely Josiah Harrington. Josiah spoke 2 full days. He stayed poised, even analytical. He detailed his pairing scheme systematically. He referenced farming prints and research works. He asserted he'd handled Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia superior to most bonded. Better lodging, finer meals, schooling. He exhibited no regret, no sense of wrong. He truly thought his words would clear him, that sensible folk would grasp his method's sense. The jurors pondered 13 hours. They found Josiah Harrington guilty on both accusations, offenses against essence and behavior unfit for a resident. Top penalty, 4 years incarceration and $600 levy. Josiah did 24 months, freed in November 1854 for model conduct. But the judicial result was one strand in Willowbrook's wake. The true query: what fate for Eliza, her daughters, and the pairing scheme's kids? They stayed legally bonded. Josiah's assets, upon release, he'd reclaim. Anti-bondage Northerners gathered funds for their liberty. They amassed over $9,000, ample for all 15. Eliza, Amelia, Charlotte, Sophia, Samson, and the 10 kids from the Eastern Hut. But Josiah declined sale. He wrote the anti-bondage group. These persons embody years of prudent outlay and pairing. They are prized assets. I reject your bid irrespective of sum. They'll stay at Willowbrook as proper. The deadlock shattered via surprise aid. Josiah's kin, the broad Harrington clan, were appalled by the disgrace. The clan title muddied. Their Beaufort standing plunged. They faulted Josiah for clan shame. In January 1855, Josiah's kin Henry Harrington lodged docs in a state court asserting Josiah mentally unfit and warranting legal incapacity for affairs. The lodge claimed Josiah's acts showed ethical madness and reason lapse justifying meddling. The act transparently aimed to grab Willowbrook and assets, bonded included, but succeeded. Judge Thornton, keen to settle, sided with Henry. Josiah deemed unfit. Henry gained asset guardianship. Henry promptly took the anti-bondage bid. In March 1855, Eliza, her daughters, Samson, and all kids, sold to American Bondage Opposition League reps. The League freed them instantly and set travel to Indiana, a free territory. Josiah contested the side, but appeals failed. He lost holdings and standing effectively. He died 1859, age 64, in a modest Beaufort dwelling, resentful and defiant. His death notice in the Beaufort Herald. 4 lines, no Willowbrook mention. Willowbrook estate sold in lots. The Eastern Hut torched in 1856, accident or intent unknown. The chief residence decayed, razed in the 1890s. Willowbrook survives nil today save a 2000 plaque. Locale of Willowbrook Estate 1825 and 1856, whose 1852 exposure bared bondage's harsh truths and fueled anti-bondage views. The plaque omits Josiah Harrington. It skips details. Some pass too grim for open recall. For the escaped, Eliza lived to 1878. She never public spoke Willowbrook Post, Indiana. She labored as a tailor in Indianapolis, residing modestly with daughters. Died age 67, unmarked plot. Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia wed free African men in Indiana. They bore kids, rightful kids from willing bonds, raised free. All 3 mastered skills. Amelia a tutor, Charlotte a birther, Sophia a modest shopkeeper. They swapped surnames from Harrington to Liberty, a purposeful disown of their captor sire's title and embrace of fresh rank. The sisters seldom passed disgust. At 1861 war outbreak, they backed Union subtly, giving to African units. They witnessed bondage end. Amelia died 1896, Charlotte 1900, Sophia 1908. Among them, 28 kids, 52 grandkids, free folk all, bearing no Willowbrook taint save in blood recall. Samson's end less sure. He dwelled Indianapolis near Liberty Sisters. He toiled wharves, packing riverboats on the Wabash. Some tales hint ties with Amelia, loving or trauma shared, unclear. Died 1872, age 55, interred Indianapolis Liberty Yard. The Eastern Hut kids, Josiah's grandkids and great-grandkids, matured free in Indiana, Most adopted liberty. They schooled, they skilled, they wed, bore own. By 1905, Josiah Harrington's heirs included educators, workers, entrepreneurs, a cleric, folk who turned origin horror to routine honorable existences. None, per annals, revisited South Carolina. The Willowbrook matter turned anti-bondage benchmark. Sojourner Truth penned it broadly. Lydia Maria Child cited in anti-bondage talks. The matter featured in 1850s anti-bondage tracts, shown as proof bondage bred ethical decay and beastly harshness. Southern bondage backers tried framing Willowbrook as outlier, a lone lunatic whose deeds didn't mirror the setup wholly. But the matter bared what hollowed this. Josiah Harrington's deeds legal. The setup shielded him. Codes offered no victim aid. If the setup housed Josiah Harrington's pairing scheme sans code breach, what of the setup? The query loomed 1850s, aiding the swelling rift culminating Civil War. Willowbrook one more proof bondage tainted all. Codes, ethics, kin, culture. The Willowbrook matter bared a truth pale America shunned. Bodily assault not outlier in bondage, but core to function. Scholars gauge by 1865, least 15–25% bonded Southerners held partial pale roots from generational assault. These weren't lone events. They were expected from a setup granting total owner sway over bonded bodies. Josiah Harrington's pairing scheme unusual solely in orderly logging and open inbreeding embrace. The base reason, bonded for owner use, reproduction included, woven in the setup. The matter spurred scant code changes in Southern territories. South Carolina altered codes 1854 to bar pairing schemes defying innate codes, though applied scarce. Georgia enacted a kin, but reforms mostly image, not base fix, bonded refusal incapacity. More key, Willowbrook shaped anti-bondage tactics. Pre-1852, most anti-bondage pleas hit economic wrong or innate rights breach. Post-Willowbrook, anti-bondage stressed bondage's bodily assault and kin ruin. This made pleas emotionally stronger, yet politically riskier. Bodily assault talk demanded open white male conduct admit. Many Northern leaders dodged. The Willowbrook matter compelled the talk. The matter also bared silence complicity. Dr. Cartwright, who shunned Hattie's alerts. Pastor Hawthorne, who logged doubts but skipped follow. Abigail Whitaker, who noted oddities but ignored. Whole Beaufort Circle, who must have spotted Willowbrook wrong yet chose no probe. This willful blindness pattern marked bondage's run. The setup depended on decent folk averting, explaining abuse proof, favoring social peace over right. Willowbrook showed blindness collapse result, when probes truly eyed Eastern hut happenings. The terror unbearable yet ever there, awaiting admit. Perhaps Willowbrook's grimmest hint. Josiah Harrington deemed responsible. He kept logs. He gave conditions superior to typical bonded. He schooled daughters. In warped reason, he treated victims well. This illusion benevolent aims could bless basic human breaches marked pro-bondage thought. Owners painted selves as fatherly guards of childlike bonded needing lead. They saw no clash with total bonded life sway. Josiah pushed this one step, deeming his pairing scheme research forward. He wasn't fiend in own view. He was enlightened owner, using logical rules to estate run. The self-trick capacity, building complex cruelty excuses. One bondage's lasting teachings. Evil seldom declares bold. It cloaks in fake research, output claims, good aim assertions. The Willowbrook matter compels face uneasy queries on sway and answerability. If code sanctioned total rule as bondage did, abuse prevention. If setup gives no victim justice path, recourse versus systemic assault. These queries didn't perish with bondage end. They reemerge when culture grants unchecked sway one group over other. Border holds, jail systems, disabled or mental care spots. Where rule runs, sans real watch, Willowbrook's specter warns. The matter also shows economic setups shape ethical thought. Josiah Harrington's pairing scheme economically sound in bondage reason. Kids boosted wealth. Choosy pairing could theory boost workforce worth. The terror, not economy irrational. Morally ruinous. This economic efficiency versus human worth pull threads American past. Seen in 1910's child work fights, safety rule resistance, min pay opposes. When dignity protect claimed economy unaffordable, Willowbrook reminds logic end. The survivor's tale, Amelia Tudor, Charlotte Berther, Sophia Shop, show striking endurance. They didn't mere flee Willowbrook. They forged worthy lives despite vast wound. Their kids and gran thrived, building groups and kins embodying all Josiah's pairing scheme denied full personhood. But don't romantic endurance. They shouldn't need it. They shouldn't suffer what suffered. Survivor strength praise can't excuse victimizing setups. The Liberty Sisters lived free, yet haunted by Eastern hut recalls. They bore wanted kids in chosen bonds, yet carried blood crime legacies. Wound doesn't fade with liberty, mending not swift. Modern gene tests show millions African Americans bear marks, hinting European roots likely from bondage-era assault. The assault bio-legacy lingers in current genes. Every lineage hides Willowbrook-like secrets, though rarely so logged. This poses ethical memory queries. Do bonded heirs deserve ancestor life details? Should we dig buried pains? Can truth admit sans community re-wound? No simple replies, but Willowbrook hints silence aids wrongdoers over prey. Josiah Harrington ran in silence, guarded by group plot to shun clear outrages. Only silence break enabled answer. The matter also shows Doc's double edge. Josiah's exact logs, accounts, and diaries he thought proved research strict became convict proof. He built his crime archive. This repeats history. Reich's log obsession, apartheid race docs, tyrant regimes catalog wrongs. Oppress systematize impulse often makes later expose proof, but docs alone, insufficient. Josiah's logs existed 12 years pre-authority critical exam. Someone needed care. Someone needed look. Someone needed deem ledger content over social peace and asset rights. The national probes at Willowbrook December 1852 could have averted. Could have ruled pairing schemes private estate outside scope. Could have logged and proceeded. Instead, they looked, logged, witnessed, used relative sway to bear find. Their picks mattered. This poses current duty queries. What modern Willowbrooks hide plain, shielded by code fine print and group quiet? What wrongs run under sway veil awaiting power holder to look? Border holds, profit jails, disabled abuse, trade. These run obscure, limited watch. Victims lacking self-advocate. Structure echoes Willowbrook's seclusion and quiet. Breaking quiets needs authority folk choosing probe, log, act even if career or social uneasy. Needs victim belief when speak. Needs dignity over setup ease prioritize. The Willowbrook matter reveals evil needs no special villain. Needs regular folk accepting dehumanized systems. Needs suffering avert when admit inconvenient. Needs asset rights over human. Josiah Harrington monster. Yet society made and shielded. The terror not his exist. Terror he ran open near 15 years pre-intervene. Terror intervene near accident via clerk slip exposing wrong account. How many other Willowbrook sans slip? How many pairing schemes, pain rooms, systemic breaches in bondage sans doc or bear? Unknowable. Archive incomplete designed. What known? Willowbrook not unique. Just unusually logged. Suggests true bondage horoscope beyond annals capture. The matter warns on sway. Quiet. Society atrocity rationalize ease. Challenges scrutinize current setups with probe's critical eye on Josiah Harrington's accounts. Where avert? What suffering accept normal? What setups insufficient watch? These not abstract. Concrete answers. And answers indict our picks as Willowbrook indicted antebellum South Carolina. The Eastern hut gone. Willowbrook estate annals only, but teachings urgent. Systematic cruel capacity not vanished human nature. Evil rationalized tendency not gone. Avert comfort tempts daily. Willowbrook recall more than horror catalog. Means ongoing duty look, log, intervene. Means grasp quiet serves sway, speak serves right. The Liberty Sisters grasped. They lived quiet, yet free. Raised kids' dignity. Turned Josiah Harrington's planned bonded dynasty to free generations carrying his blood legacy. yet rejecting all his pairing schemes stood. That shift from Eastern hut to routine, dignified liberty, both Willowbrook's terror and hope. Terror as shift needed, hope as possible. Amelia, Charlotte, and Sophia Liberty proved human worth survive systematic destroy tries. Proved liberty, though late, meaningful. Proved survivors build futures honoring personhood over victimhood. But shouldn't need proof. Shouldn't require resilience. Show pre-personhood admit. Willowbrook teaching not people horror survive. Horror shouldn't occur first. The Willowbrook matter compels confront human nature darkest when law-shielded and quiet shrouded. Josiah Harrington's pairing scheme not outlier. Bondage logic explicit end. What enabled Josiah near 15 years sans intervene? Legal shield, social aid, or deeper society systemic assault rationalize? Share theories comments. If tale moved, ponder current power quiet patterns. Past not repeat, echoes. Structures shielding Willowbrook exist varied, await brave expose. Like if this gripped you, share with history or mystery buffs, and subscribe for more unearthed American past chapters revealing uneasy truths on sway, wrong, and human cruel resilient span. Hit notifications to catch next past shadow probe. Eastern hut gone, teaching stay. Stay alert, questioning, never deem quiet right serves. Till next.